The United States is a land of bright lights and loud cities. But in the cracks between the highways and the suburbs, there are stories, dark, buried, and all too real. Tonight we're uncovering 10 of the most terrifying true horror stories in American history. Not legends, not ghost tales passed around a campfire. These are events reported by real people. Police officers, families, children. People who never expected their lives to change forever, until they did. From cursed houses in rural towns to inexplicable vanishings on familiar streets, these stories have one thing in common. They've never been fully explained, and maybe they were never meant to be. Maybe some truths are too heavy to speak aloud, until now. So don't expect answers. Just hold your breath and listen. Because once you start hearing what's been hidden across this country, you'll realize how thin the line between safety and nightmare truly is. Ever been alone in the woods and felt something watching you? Something that shouldn't be there? In 2012, my friend and I went camping by a small lake in the rural American Southeast, thinking it'd be a chill night under the stars. Instead, we saw them. Small, round, white faces glowing faintly, staring at us from across the water. They weren't human. They weren't animals. And when they vanished, the shuffling and snapping of branches echoed in the dark, like something was coming for us. We barely made it through the night. But the real terror, what I found when I went back. Stick around. This gets worse. It was a humid Saturday in August 2012. I was 21, scraping by at a warehouse job, when my buddy Chris, a guy who lived for the outdoors, roped me into camping. We decided to take a Saturday night to camp on private property. We had permission from the owner on the bank of a small lake in the rural American Southeast. The spot was about 10 miles from a quiet southern suburb, but it felt like the edge of nowhere. The lake, maybe 100 yards across, was more like a deep pond, surrounded by woods so dense you couldn't see through them. A locked gate on a dirt road was the only way in, and Chris's uncle gave us the code. We pulled my old Toyota through, locked it behind us, and set up a cheap tent by the water's edge. Chris was all about it, building the fire, pointing out stars. I wasn't a camping guy, but the peace was nice, and the lake reflected the moonlight, like a mirror. We were sprawled on a blanket, eating chips, joking about old times, when Chris went rigid. "Yo, you see that?" He pointed across the lake. I squinted into the dark, just trees and shadows. "You're losing it," I said, but my stomach nodded. His voice dropped to a whisper. "No, man. There's a bunch of small, round, white faces staring back at me from across the lake, like very pale, somehow internally illuminated children." My heart lurched. I sat up, blinking hard, thinking it was a trick of the light. Then I saw them too. Dozens of small, pale faces, glowing faintly, peeking from behind the trees, their bodies hidden. Maybe 15 or 20, unblinking, their eerie glow cutting through the dark. My breath caught. They didn't move, didn't shift, just stared. I wanted to call it owls, reflections, anything, but nothing made sense. We hadn't touched alcohol, hadn't smoked. Just two guys, stone cold sober, facing something impossible. "Chris," I croaked. "What are we looking at?" He didn't answer. His face drained of color, eyes locked on the trees. We sat frozen, staring back, the fire crackling. Behind us, it felt like forever, probably 5 minutes. My mind raced. Pranksters, some weird bioluminescent bugs? But the faces felt alive, their gaze heavy, like they were sizing us up. Then, like a switch flipped, they vanished. The woods went dead quiet, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. Before I could speak, we heard extensive shuffling. From the other side of the lake, and a couple of small branches snap as well. The lake amplified every sound. Cracks, rustles, like a group was moving through the underbrush. My pulse hammered. Chris grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "We gotta..." "Oof," we hissed. "Move where?" The car was a half-mile away through dense woods behind a locked gate. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam shaking in my hand. It barely cut the dark, catching only trees and shadows that seemed to twist. "What if they're coming?" I whispered. Chris's eyes were wild. "What if they're already here?" We scrambled into the tent, zipping it shut as if that flimsy fabric could protect us. "Maybe it's locals messing with us," I said, clutching my pocket knife. Chris shook his head. "Locals don't look like that." We sat in the dark, knives out, every sound amplified. Around midnight, a new noise started, a low, rhythmic hum like a chant without words coming from the lake. It wasn't loud, but crawled under my skin, making my jaw clench. I didn't dare look. Chris was curled up, muttering, "This ain't normal, man." Then, past 2 a.m., I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the tent. Not human steps, not animal. Something else. My heart pounded so hard I thought it had burst. I gripped my knife, praying it was just the wind. The night dragged on, endless. Every rustle, every creak made us jump. At one point, the hum stopped, replaced by a single sharp crack like a tree splitting in half. Chris flinched, his breath ragged. I kept thinking about the gate, the woods, the distance to safety. What were those things? Ghosts? Something older, tied to the land? Dawn couldn't come fast enough. When the first light hit the lake, we tore down camp in a panic. The water looked calm, almost mocking, but the woods felt wrong, too still, too heavy. We didn't talk much on the drive home. Chris kept checking the rearview mirror like those faces might follow us. Back home, I scoured the internet, searching glowing faces in woods, haunted lakes. Nothing. No legends, no forums, no trace. It was like the lake didn't exist. A month later, Chris's uncle called. Someone had checked the campsite. The tent was ripped apart, the fire pit scattered, and there were tracks. Too big for a person, too strange for an animal. He asked if we'd seen anything weird. Chris hung up, his hands shaking. I couldn't let it go. 6 months later, against every instinct, I went back alone. Chris wouldn't even talk about it, said it was a nightmare. He wanted to bury. I brought a trail cam, set it up facing the trees where we'd seen those faces, and left it for a week. When I checked the footage, it was mostly normal. Squirrels, a coyote, nothing strange. But at 1:43 a.m. on night 4, the screen glitched. For 3 seconds, there they were. Those small, pale, glowing faces, closer now, inches from the lens. Their eyes, or whatever passed for eyes, locked on the camera, unblinking. Then static. The cam was fried when I retrieved it, battery drained, memory card corrupted. I haven't gone back. Chris is different now. Jumpy, hates the dark. He moved to Charlotte, got a desk job, acts like it never happened. But I know better. I still hear that hum some nights, faint, like it's woven into the silence of my room. I don't know what those things were, spirits, demons, or something ancient tied to that lake. But they saw us. They knew us, and I can't shake the feeling they're waiting, patient for me to return. Would you go back for answers, or pray you never see those faces again? That lake's still out there, quiet, unassuming. People probably. Camp there, fish there, never knowing what's watching from the trees. I've thought about warning them, but who'd believe me? Sometimes I pull up Google Maps, zoom in on that spot, and stare at the green blur of woods. It looks so normal, but I know what's hiding in the dark. I've seen it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question is, What would you do if you saw it too? Dusk was settling over our Tennessee home when my gut screamed I was being watched. Not by a neighbor, but something hidden in the woods below our hill. I scanned the trees, heart racing, and froze. A figure with a fox-like head, white fur, and pitch-black eyes stared back, then vanished. My little brother's voice trembled. Something's out there. This wasn't a prank or a raccoon. What we saw that night in 2018 forced us to flee our home, leaving everything behind. Glowing, white eyes impossibly high locked onto us from the forest. Stay with me. This true story will make you rethink what's lurking just beyond your backyard. Summer 2018, our small Tennessee town was the kind of place where kids rode bikes until dark and neighbors left doors unlocked. Our house sat high, on a hill, the forest below a tangle of pines and shadows. My brother, Caleb, 12 and full of energy, was always dragging me outside to keep him entertained. We were kicking a soccer ball in the backyard, the air thick with the scent of cut grass when that feeling hit, like someone was staring right through me. I stopped, ball rolling away, and scanned the tree line. Nothing but swaying branches. Caleb's ghost stories were messing with me, I thought. Then Caleb froze, his eyes wide. "You saw it, didn't you?" he whispered, pointing to the woods. My stomach dropped. "Saw what?" I asked, voice tight. "The black shape. It ran into the trees." My mind flashed to that glimpse earlier. A figure with white fur and black eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. Was it back? I grabbed Caleb's shoulder. "Stay close." I sprinted to the shed, grabbing Dad's high-powered flashlight, the kind hunters used to spot game a mile away. Caleb trailed me, his voice shaky. "We should go inside." But I needed to know. At the fence, I switched on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dusk. It swept over gnarled trunks, fallen leaves, and then, in the right corner of the woods, two glowing white eyes stared back. Not animal eyes, not reflective like a cat's. They were steady, unblinking, and level. With our house on the hill, though the forest floor was far below, Caleb gasped, clutching my arm. "What's that?" I couldn't answer. The eyes swayed slightly, like a predator sizing us up. I flicked the light off, heart pounding. Darkness swallowed the woods. I counted to 10, then turned it back on. The eyes were still there, unmoved, locked on us. This wasn't a raccoon. This was something wrong. We stood frozen, the flashlight trembling in my hand. Caleb's breathing was shallow, his fingers digging into my arm. Those eyes held us, unyielding, as if they could see every fear in our hearts. I wanted to run, to drag Caleb inside and bolt the door, but my body wouldn't move. I flicked the light off again, praying it was a trick of the dusk. 10 seconds. 20. I turned it back on. The eyes swayed, left to right, like they were taunting us. My blood ran cold. This thing wasn't afraid, it was in control. Caleb, small but stubborn, pulled his BB gun from his pocket. "I'm gonna make it leave," he said, voice cracking. Before I could stop him, he aimed and fired. The pellet vanished into the dark. The eyes dipped, then rose slowly, as if the thing turned to face us head on. Caleb fired again, his hands shaking. Nothing. "It's not working," he yelled, panic rising. I grabbed the gun, my own hands unsteady. "Stop. It's not normal." The air grew colder, a chill that didn't match the summer night. I swear I heard a faint rustle, like something massive shifting in the trees. But the flashlight showed only those eyes. Headlights flashed across the yard. Grandpa's old pickup rumbled up, its engine loud and grounding. I grabbed Caleb, stumbling, toward the porch. "Grandpa," I shouted as he climbed out, his weathered face stern. "There's something in the woods," Caleb was crying, pointing. "It's got white eyes." Grandpa's jaw tightened. He grabbed his shotgun from the truck and marched to the fence, his flashlight sweeping the trees. But when the beam hit the right corner, the eyes were gone. No rustle, no trace, just silence. Grandpa lowered his gun, spitting into the dirt. "Raccoon," he growled. "Y'all are too old for this nonsense," I wanted to scream. A raccoon. Those eyes were level with ours, towering over the forest floor. Caleb and I tried to explain, our words tripping over each other, but Grandpa cut us off. "Inside, now." His voice was sharp, but his eyes darted to the woods, and I caught a flicker, fear, or maybe something deeper. He knew more than he was saying. We shuffled inside, the weight of those eyes still pressing on me. Caleb clung to me, whispering, "What was it?" I didn't know, but I knew it wasn't a raccoon. It's been years since that night, but those white eyes still haunt me. I'm 25 now, living in a city where the only shadows are cast by skyscrapers. But every time I pass a patch of trees, my heart races, and I check the darkness for that glow. What we saw wasn't just strange. It was wrong, and it changed our family. Caleb, now 19, avoids nature, sticking to video games instead of the outdoors he once loved. Mom's silence is deafening. She flinches when I mention Tennessee. And Grandpa? He passed away last year, taking whatever he knew to the grave. I've spent hours digging into what happened. Our town's library had old records, newspaper clippings about missing campers, odd lights in the woods, and stories of a presence locals avoided. One article from the 1970s described a family who fled their hilltop home after seeing eyes in the forest. Another, from 1995, mentioned a hunter who swore something tall followed him, its gaze burning into his back. None offered answers, only more questions. Was it a spirit tied to the land? A creature science hasn't named? Or something darker, something that marked us? I posted about it online, hoping for clarity. A few replies mentioned similar sightings, glowing eyes, a sense of being hunted. One user claimed their cousin saw the same thing in those woods in 2019 and never hiked again. Another said their grandfather warned about old watchers in the hills, things that didn't like trespassers. But no one had proof, just stories that echoed ours. The more I read, the more I realized our family wasn't alone. Those woods held something, and it wasn't done with us. What bothers me most is Grandpa's reaction. That flicker in his eyes wasn't just fear, it was recognition. He'd lived in that town his whole life, born in a house just a mile from ours. Did he see it before? Did Mom? Is that why we left so fast? I tried asking her once, years later. Why did we move? I pressed. She busied herself with dishes, her voice flat. It was time. But her hands shook and she wouldn't meet my eyes. I've thought about going back, standing at that fence with a flashlight, demanding answers. But what if it's still there? What if it follows me? Here's the truth. Those woods aren't safe. If you live near a forest, especially in a quiet town like ours, pay attention. Notice the silence when it's too heavy. The chill that doesn't match the weather. Shine a light into the trees at night. See what looks back. Because once you see those eyes, they don't forget you. They didn't forget us. Our family ran, but I still feel them watching sometimes, waiting for me to step too close to the trees. Again. Have you seen something like this? Eyes in the dark, a shape that doesn't fit? Drop your story in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone. And if this chilled you, subscribe for more true stories that'll keep you up. The next one's even stranger, and it's coming soon. The unlocked kitchen window. a shadow from their past. Their dad installs a padlock on the kid's door that day, telling them to lock it every night. The window's bolted shut, but the kid's not convinced it'll keep him out. Days drag on, and the apartment feels like a stranger. The kid jumps at every noise, a creak, a drip, the hum of the fridge. Their mom's quieter now, always checking the windows, her hands shaking when she thinks no one's watching. The kid's dad starts coming home earlier, his eyes scanning the street like he's expecting trouble. One night, the kid overhears them whispering in the kitchen. "He's done this before," their mom says, voice low. "Not just to us." The kid's heart skips. Before? They don't ask, but the question burns. Who else did he visit, and why their room? At school, the kid's distracted, replaying the night over and over. Their friends notice, but the kid doesn't tell. They wouldn't believe it. Instead, they start watching the adults in their life, looking for clues. Their uncle, who lives upstairs, avoids their eyes when they ask about family problems. Their grandma, visiting one weekend, grips her rosary tighter when the kid mentions the man. It's like everyone knows something, but no one's talking. The bruise fades, but the kid's fear doesn't. They start sleeping with a baseball bat under their pillow, just in case. Every night they check the lock, the window, the shadows, because if he got in once, he could do it again. Weeks turn into months, and the kid's world feels smaller, tighter, like the walls are watching. They're still the same tough 7-year-old who'd yell at older kids for stealing their ball. But now they're different. They don't sleep right, waking at every creak, expecting to see him again. The padlock on their door helps, but not enough. Their parents try to act normal, but the kid sees the cracks. Mom's nervous glances, dad's clenched jaw when he checks the locks. The apartment's a fortress now, every window bolted, every door double-checked. But the kid knows, locks didn't stop him before. One day, the kid's playing in the courtyard when they overhear their uncle talking to a neighbor. "He's back in the neighborhood," the uncle says, voice low. "Saw him near the bodega last night." The kid freezes, their ball rolling away. Him? They don't ask, but their minds racing. Is it the same man? The one who pinched them? They start paying attention, noticing things they didn't before. The neighbor across the hall, an old lady who always smells of mothballs, stops them one day. "You're the kid he visited, aren't you?" she asks, her eyes sharp. The kid nods, throat dry. "Be careful," she says. "He's not right in the head. Never was." The kid's parents don't talk about it, but the tension's thick. One night, their mom sits them down, her hands fidgeting. "If you ever see him again, you run," she says, her voice firm but shaky. "Don't talk, don't help, just run." The kid wants to ask why, but their mom's eyes say it all. Fear, guilt, secrets. Later, they find a photo in their dad's wallet, tucked behind a grocery list. It's the man, younger, smiling with their aunt. The kid's stomach twists. He's family, but he's a stranger. Someone they sent away but couldn't keep out. Months later, the kid's walking home from school when they see him. Not in their room, not in the dark, but across the street, leaning against a lamppost. He's thinner now, his jacket dirtier, but it's him. Those eyes, unblinking, locked on them. The kid freezes, heart hammering, their mom's words echoing. Run, but they don't. They stare back, defiance mixing with fear. He doesn't move, just watches, then turns and walks away, swallowed by the Bronx's maze of alleys. The kid runs home, locks the door, and tells their parents. Their dad's face goes dark and he grabs his coat. "Stay here," he says, and he's gone. That night, the kid overhears their parents arguing. "He's not just sick," their mom hisses. "He's dangerous, always has been." Their dad's voice is quieter, heavy. "We should have told her, she deserves to know." The kid's heart pounds. Know what? That he's been watching them? That he's done this to others? The next day, their parents announced they're moving. Not far, just a few blocks, but it feels like an escape. The kid helps pack, but they can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, waiting. Years later, the kid, now grown, learns the truth. The man wasn't just a sick relative. He'd been in and out of institutions. A drifter who'd terrorized families across the Bronx, slipping into homes, leaving marks, then vanishing. No one knew why. Some said it was his illness. Others said it was something darker, a compulsion he couldn't control. The kid's family was just one stop on his path. They never forget the lesson. Always check your windows, always lock your doors. Because in a place like the Bronx, danger doesn't need an invitation. It finds a way in, and now every time, it's the dead of night in a Bronx basement apartment, 1985. A 7-year-old kid is sound asleep, safe in their tiny bed. Then, bam! A sharp pinch on their butt cheek jolts them awake, pain searing through the dark. Heart pounding, they sit, up eyes locking on a stranger at the foot of their bed. A man, silent, staring, his face half lit by a flickering bulb. "Why'd you pinch me?" the kid demands, voice shaking but fierce. His answer is a chilling whisper, "I'm thirsty." The air feels wrong, heavy, like danger's breathing down their neck. In a city that never sleeps, this moment feels like a nightmare come to life. Who is this guy? How'd he get in? And what does he really want? Stay with me. This story's about to grip you tight and not let go. The kid's room is a shoebox, walls stained from years of leaks, the air thick with the Bronx's mix of exhaust and desperation. Their nightlight hums, casting a weak glow that barely reaches the corners. At 7, this kid's seen enough. Street fights, stray dogs, the works, but nothing like this. The man at the foot of their bed feels like a violation, his presence sucking the warmth from the room. His jacket's torn, smelling of wet pavement and something sharp like old pennies. His eyes don't move, fixed on the kid like they're the only thing in the world. "I said, why'd you pinch me?" The kid snaps again, their voice a mix of anger and fear, small fists balled up under the blanket. The man tilts his head, slow, like he's hearing something far away. "I'm thirsty," he repeats, his voice a low rasp, each word dragging like a blade across stone. "Get me some juice." The kid's mind races. Their mom's voice rings in their ears. "Don't talk to strangers." But this guy's already here, sitting on their bed, breaking every rule in the book. Their parents' room is just down the hall, door cracked open, but screaming feels risky. What if he's dangerous? What if he's not alone? The kid's gut says to play along, keep him calm. They pull their nightgown down to cover their butt, the sting still fresh, and slide off the bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor. "Juice or water?" they ask, trying to sound brave, though their hands tremble. "Juice," he says, and for a split second, his face softens like he's remembering something human. The kitchen's a few steps away, but it feels like crossing a minefield. The kid moves slow, ears straining for any sound. A creak, a footstep, anything to warn them he's following. The fridge hums, the only noise in the dead quiet. They grab a plastic cup, the kind with faded cartoon characters, and pour orange juice from a half-empty carton. A drop spills, pooling on the counter, and they freeze, heart hammering. That's when they see it. The kitchen window, wide open, the cheap curtain flapping in the night breeze. The kid's stomach drops. He came through there. This isn't a random visit. He knew exactly how to get in. Back in the room, they hand him the cup and he downs it in one go, throat working like he hasn't drunk in days. "Good," he mutters, setting the cup on the nightstand, his fingers leaving a smear of grime. The kid stares at the smear, then at him. "Who are you?" they whisper, barely audible. He doesn't answer, just stands, his shadow looming over. The bed. "Lock the door behind me," he says, his voice flat, and he's gone, slipping into the hall like he was never there. The kid follows, heart pounding, and locks the front door as he vanishes into the night. They stand there, gripping. The knob breath shallow. The apartment feels different now, like it's holding its breath, waiting for him to come back. Did they just dodge a bullet, or did they let something worse slip away? Morning comes, but the kid's still wired, curled up on the couch with the TV blaring static to block out the night. Their butt throbs, a constant reminder of that pinch. They keep seeing him, the man's face, his unblinking eyes, the way he moved like he owned the place. Was he real? The grime on the nightstand says yes. Their mom shuffles out, yawning, and the kid can't hold it in. "Mom, a man was in my room last night. He pinched me really hard," they blurt, voice shaky. Their mom chuckles, thinking it's a kid's imagination, but the kid lifts their nightgown. There's a bruise, purple and angry, shaped like a thumbprint. Their mom's smile vanishes, her face going ghost white. "What happened?" she asks, voice tight, like she's bracing for the worst. The kid tells it all. The pinch, the stranger, the juice, the open window. Their mom's eyes flick to the kitchen where the window's still ajar, letting in a chill. She calls their dad, and he storms in, face like stone. They search the apartment, under beds, in closets, behind curtains. But the man's long gone. The smear on the nightstand and the bruise are all that's left. Later, they find out he's a family member, someone with mental illness, sent away from the Dominican Republic after trouble with another kid. He'd slipped through. The grown kid hears a creak at night, they wonder. Is he still out there watching? Or is it someone new, looking for an open window? Imagine waking up in the dead of night, your heart pounding. Not because of a nightmare, but because something outside your window is calling your name. It's not a voice you recognize. It's low, guttural, like the wind itself is speaking. That's how my story begins, in a place where the trees seem to watch you and the darkness feels alive. My name's Ethan, and when I was 8, my life changed forever in a trailer at the edge of a forest that no one dared to enter after dusk. We'd just moved to Sand Mountain, Alabama, a place where the air smells of pine and secrets. I vividly remember driving through a virtual sea of green right outside of Atlanta, the endless trees swallowing the highway. But as we got closer to our new home, I started to feel really uneasy. It wasn't just the culture shock of leaving the city, for a nowhere town. It was something heavier, like the air was pressing down on my chest, whispering, "You don't belong here." My mom brushed it off as nerves, but I could see it in her eyes. She felt it too. Our new home was a beat-up trailer at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by woods so thick they blocked out the stars. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, and the silence was deafening. At night, the forest came alive with sounds, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, and sometimes a low hum that seemed to come from nowhere. Our closest neighbor was well over a mile away. My room had a huge bay window facing the forest, and I hated it. Every night, I'd pull the curtains tight, but it never felt like enough. Something was out there, watching, waiting. The first week, I noticed strange things. Footprints in the mud outside my window, too big to be human, too deliberate to be an animal. Once, I found a circle of stones arranged in the backyard, like someone or something had been marking the ground. My stepdad laughed it off, saying it was probably local kids messing around. But there were no kids out here. Just us, the trees, and whatever lived among them. Each night the feeling grew stronger. Something was coming for me. And one night, it did. It started on a night when sleep wouldn't come. I was exhausted from exploring the woods, but my eyes refused to close. Cartoon Network flickered in the dark, a feeble shield against the silence. Then, without warning, I wasn't in my bed anymore. I was deep in the woods in the southeast of the property, a place I'd only seen once where the trees grew so close they seemed to whisper to each other. But I wasn't walking. I was moving fast, too fast, like a predator stalking its prey. My body wasn't my own. It was an unnatural speed, predatory and precise, darting from cover to cover, tree to tree. The forest blurred past me, shadows, twisting into shapes that didn't make sense. Faces in the bark, hands reaching from the underbrush. My heart raced, but I couldn't scream, couldn't move. The thing controlling me stopped abruptly, crouching behind a tree, its gaze fixed on our trailer. Through its eyes, I saw my own window, the curtains half open, my silhouette faintly, visible against the TV's glow. It was watching me. A cold realization hit. This thing knew exactly where I was, and it wanted me to know it was coming. Each night, it happened again, longer and clearer. I'd snap back to my body, gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat. The woods felt closer now, the hum louder, like a chant I couldn't understand. I started noticing things during the day, scratches on the trailer's walls, too high for any animal to make. Once I found a bird, its wings torn off, left on our doorstep like an offering. My mom said it was just a cat, but her voice shook. I knew better. This wasn't a cat. It was a message. The worst part? I started hearing it in my head. Not words, but a pull, like a hook in my chest urging me to walk into the forest. I'd catch myself standing at the door, hand on the knob, with no memory of getting there. My stepdad caught me once, his face pale. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing?" I couldn't answer. How do you explain that something out there is rewriting your thoughts? I stopped sleeping, afraid I'd wake up in the woods. Or worse, not wake up at all. The trailer wasn't a home anymore. It was a trap, and I was the bait. One night the air felt different, thicker, like it was holding its breath. I was in bed, eyes locked on the bay window, when the hum from the forest stopped. Silence, pure and suffocating, took its place. Then I felt it. A presence, heavy, undeniable, just outside. I sat straight up and turned toward the window instantly, because I just knew that it was there. My breath caught as I saw it. Leaning from behind a large tree right at the edge of the woods, it was tall, really tall. Its skin taut like it was stretched over its bones. Its face was humanoid but wrong, grotesquely elongated, with a smile impossibly wide, long, sharp teeth, skinny and needle-like, and eyes really big. The Greyman didn't move. It just stared, its eyes boring into me like it could see my thoughts. Its claws, long and curled, beckoned me closer, a gesture that felt like a command. My body twitched, wanting to obey, but my mind screamed to stay put. Then I heard it, not with my ears, but in my skull, a voice low and jagged saying, "Come to me, Ethan, you're mine." I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. The voice grew louder, weaving through my thoughts, promising things I didn't understand but desperately wanted. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, fighting the urge to open the window. Hours, maybe. When the sun rose, the gray man was gone, but its presence lingered. That night it came closer. I woke to a shadow at the foot of my bed, its silhouette towering against the wall. It just stood there, staring at me through my window, then cocked its head and motioned for me to come to it. The voice returned, louder, more insistent. "You can't hide. You belong to the forest." I pulled the blankets over my head, praying. It would leave, but the air grew colder, the room smaller. It was inside now, not just watching but claiming me. Every night it came back, sometimes outside, sometimes inches from my face. I stopped telling my parents, they didn't believe me, and their dismissals only made it worse. I found drawings in my notebook I didn't remember making, sketches of a tall, smiling figure with needle teeth. The forest felt like it was closing in, the trees leaning toward the trailer, their branches scratching the roof like fingers. I was losing myself, piece by piece, to something I couldn't fight. The Grayman was relentless. Each night, it chipped, away at my will, its voice a constant hum in my mind. Come to the forest, you're already mine. I found myself having to actively fight an almost uncontrollable impulse to go out to it. It wasn't just fear, it was temptation, a sick pull that made me question my own thoughts. I'd wake up standing at the window, fingers on the latch with no memory of moving. My body was betraying me, and the Grayman knew it. Its smile widened each time as if it could taste my surrender. I stopped sleeping, surviving on coffee and fear. The trailer felt like a cage, every creak a reminder that I wasn't alone. My dreams were worse. Vivid nightmares of walking through the forest, the Grayman leading me deeper until the trees closed in, their branches wrapping around me like arms. In one dream, I saw myself standing at the edge of a pit, the Grayman behind me whispering, "Jump, it's where you belong." I'd wake screaming, my throat raw, my mom's worried face hovering over me. She started locking my door at night, but it didn't help. The Grayman didn't need doors. I tried fighting back. I hung crosses on my walls, sprinkled salt under my bed, things I'd seen in movies. Nothing worked. The crosses fell, the salt scattered. Once I found a note on my pillow, written in my own handwriting. "You can't run." My parents thought I was losing it, but I knew the truth. The Grayman wasn't just outside, it was inside me, rewriting my mind. I was drowning and no one could see it. The forest was calling, and I was running out of reasons to resist. One night, when I thought I couldn't take another second of the Grayman's torment, something new appeared. I woke to a presence at the foot of my bed, but it wasn't the Grayman. It was perched on the bottom railing of my bed, looking a lot different from that character, but as close to an analog as I can come up with. It was small, its skin shimmering like oil on water, its eyes glinting with a cunning I couldn't trust. It spoke, its voice a soft hiss. "I can make the Grayman leave, for a price." It told me it would get rid of the Grayman for a price. Froze. The air around this thing, call it the Fae, felt wrong, like a trap disguised as hope. It wouldn't say what it wanted, only smiled. Its teeth too sharp, its gaze too knowing. I was desperate, barely human after weeks of no sleep, my mind fraying at the edges. "What do you want?" I whispered. The FA leaned closer, its breath cold against my face. "Something you won't miss, until it's gone." My heart sank. I didn't trust it, but the Grayman's voice still echoed in my skull, and I was out of options. I don't remember agreeing, but I must have. The FA vanished, and that night the Grayman didn't come. For the first time in months I slept, but it wasn't peace. I dreamed of a forest where the trees bled, where the FA's laughter echoed, and I woke with a hollow feeling in my chest. The Grayman was gone, but something else lingered. A weight, a debt I couldn't name. Years later, I still feel it. Sometimes in the quiet, I hear the FA's voice. "You're still mine." What did I give it? My courage? My soul? Or something? Worse, I don't know, but I know this: the forest never forgets a debt, and one day it'll come to collect. I was 12, standing in my relative's bathroom in rural Tennessee. when I saw something that still haunts me. It was 2008, a humid summer night, and I'd just finished using the restroom. The house was alive with family chatter, the TV's hum drifting down the hall. But as I washed my hands, a shadow caught my eye. Something moved past the open door, slow and deliberate, like it wanted me to see. My heart stopped. I wasn't alone. This wasn't a trick of the light or a cousin playing pranks. This was real, and it was watching me. What I saw that night changed how I view the dark forever, and it's a story I've never fully shaken. The house was a typical southern home, all creaky floors and faded wallpaper, the kind that feels cozy until it doesn't. My relatives, uncle, aunt, cousins were sprawled in the living room, laughing over some old story. I'd slipped away to use the bathroom down a hallway past the kitchen with no doors directly nearby. It was a quick trip, nothing special. I opened the door before washing my hands, a kid's habit, and started scrubbing. The faucets dripped the only sound. That's when it happened. In the corner of my eye, a figure moved past the open bathroom door, heading toward the bedrooms. I froze, soap slick on my fingers. My first thought was my cousin sneaking around, but the house was small, and footsteps echo on those old floors. There were none. I turned my head, eyes locked on the doorway, and watched the figure glide past the center of the frame until it vanished to the left. It wasn't a blur or a shadow. It was solid, human-shaped, moving with purpose. My chest tightened, a chill crawling up my spine. I told myself it was nothing, just my eyes playing tricks. But deep down, I knew better. The air felt heavier, like the house itself was watching. I dried my hands, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. It was empty, the dim light unchanged, but it felt wrong, like I'd crossed into someone else's space. I hurried back to the living room, scanning the room. Every family member was still there, sprawled on couches, unchanged from when I'd left. Was anyone just in the hallway? I asked, voice shaky. My uncle chuckled, shaking his head. Nope, kiddo, you're seeing things. I wasn't convinced. I described the figure, an elderly woman hunched slightly in a light seafoam, green nightgown, her legs visible through the lacy hem. My aunt's smile faltered just for a second before she waved it off. Old houses, old shadows, she said, but her eyes avoided mine. I tried to let it go, to sink back into the family's warmth, but the image of that figure burned in my mind. Later, as I lay in my cousin's room, I couldn't stop replaying it. The slow glide, the silence, the feeling of being seen. Then I saw it, a picture on the wall, lit by moonlight. My breath caught. It was her, the woman from the hallway. Same curly graying hair, same thick glasses, same everything. My cousin, half asleep, mumbled, "That's Grandma. Died here years ago." My stomach twisted. I didn't sleep that night, and I swore I'd never walk that hallway alone again. The next morning I woke up exhausted. The image of that woman seared into my brain. The house felt different, like it was holding a secret it didn't want me to know. My cousin was already up, scarfing down cereal, acting like nothing happened. I wanted to ask him about his grandmother, but my throat tightened every time I tried. Something about that picture, those eyes, made me feel like I was being watched, even in broad daylight. I stuck close to the living room, avoiding the hallway like it was cursed. Breakfast was loud, my relatives joking and passing plates, but I couldn't shake the unease. Every creak of the old house made me flinch. Every shadow seemed to move, just out of sight. I kept replaying the moment in the bathroom, the figure's slow glide, the silence that screamed louder than any sound. The figure had moved toward those rooms, nowhere else to go. That hallway was a dead end, so where did she go? And why did she show herself to me? I decided to test the waters. While my aunt was cleaning up, I asked, "Does anything weird ever happen here? Like noises or stuff?" My voice was casual, but my hands were sweaty. She paused, her sponge dripping into the sink. "Old houses settle," she said, not looking at me, but her tone was too sharp, too quick, like she was hiding something. I didn't push, but her reaction stuck with me. She knew more than she was letting on. Later, I pulled my cousin aside in the backyard, where the adults couldn't hear. "That picture in your room," I said, voice low. "Your grandma. Has anyone else seen her? Like around the house?" He shrugged, kicking at the grass. "Nah, you're just freaked out. It's an old house, man." But his eyes darted to the window, to that hallway, and I knew he wasn't telling me everything. I pressed him, describing the figure again, the way it moved, the chill it left behind. He got quiet, then mumbled, "Sometimes I hear stuff. Footsteps, maybe. But I don't look." That afternoon, I couldn't stay away. I stood at the hallway's entrance, staring down its length. The air felt thick, like it was daring me to step closer. I took one step, then another, my sneakers loud against the hardwood. The bedrooms were just ahead, their doors half open, shadows pooling inside. I stopped, heart racing, feeling eyes on me. There was nothing there, at least nothing I could see. But the silence was alive, pressing against my skin, whispering, "You shouldn't be here." I backed away, pulse hammering, and rejoined my family. But the feeling didn't leave. That night, as we ate dinner, I kept glancing at the hallway, half expecting her to appear. My uncle noticed, nudging me. "You okay, kid? You look like you've seen a ghost." He laughed, but I didn't. I forced a smile, my stomach churning. They all acted normal, but I couldn't shake the truth. This house wasn't just old. It was haunted. And whatever I'd seen wasn't done with me yet. I went to bed that night with one thought. I had to find out who she was and why she was still here. I couldn't let it go. The figure in the hallway, the picture, my aunt's dodgy answers. They were pieces of a puzzle I didn't understand but couldn't ignore. I was 12, but I wasn't stupid. Something was wrong with this house, and I needed to know what. The next day, I watched my relatives closely, looking for cracks in their normal routine. My uncle was too quick to change the subject when I mentioned the house's history. My aunt kept glancing at the hallway, like she expected something to step out. Even my cousins seemed jumpy, avoiding that part of the house without saying why. I decided to investigate, starting with my cousin's room. It was his grandmother's old room where she'd lived before she passed. I waited until everyone was busy, then slipped inside, heart pounding. The picture was still there, her eyes following me from the wall. I studied it, searching for clues. The frame was old, the glass dusty, but her face was clear. Curly hair, thick glasses, a faint smile that felt more like a warning. I checked the room, lifting the mattress, peeking under the bed. Nothing. Just clothes, toys, and the usual kid stuff. But the air felt heavy, like I was trespassing. I moved to the dresser, opening drawers quietly. In the bottom one, tucked under some shirts, I found a small photo album, its pages brittle. Inside were family pictures. My uncle as a kid, my aunt smiling, and her. The woman in the seafoam gown, younger but unmistakable. In one photo, she stood by the hallway, her expression hard, like she was guarding something. My hands shook as I flipped through, realizing she wasn't just a memory. She was tied to this house, to that hallway, in a way no one wanted to talk about. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. I spun around, expecting my cousin, but the room was empty. The door was still closed, the window shut. My pulse raced. I shoved the album back and hurried out, the weight of her gaze following me. Back in the living room, I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. Why was she here? Was she angry, lost, or something worse? I wanted to confront my aunt, but her earlier warning, those sharp eyes, kept me quiet. That night I lay awake, the house too quiet. Every creak felt like a footstep, every gust of wind like a whisper. I kept picturing her gliding past that door, her gown trailing like mist. My cousin slept soundly, but I couldn't. Around midnight, I heard it, a faint tap like a finger on glass coming from the hallway. My heart stopped. I sat up, straining to listen, but it didn't come again. I told myself it was the house settling, but deep down I knew better. She'd died in the living room, my cousin had said. Right, where my family gathered, laughed, lived. She was still here, tied to this place, and I was starting to think she didn't want me here. I didn't sleep that night. My eyes locked on the door, waiting for her to appear. By morning, I was sure of one thing. This wasn't just a ghost story, it was personal. And if I didn't figure out why she was showing herself to me, I might never feel safe in this house again. I was running out of time. We were leaving the next day, and I still didn't have answers. The figure in the hallway, the picture, the way my family dodged my questions, it was eating at me. I couldn't leave without knowing why she'd shown herself to me. I was scared, sure, but I was also stubborn. If this house was hiding something, I was going to find it, even if it meant facing her again. I waited until the house was quiet, my relatives distracted by a card game. I slipped back to the hallway, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The air was thick, the silence pressing against my ears. I stood where I'd seen her, staring at the bedroom doors. The figure had moved toward those rooms, nowhere else to go. I took a step, then another, my breath shallow. The grandmother's old room was ahead, its door cracked open, a sliver of darkness spilling out. I pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning. The room was unchanged, the quilt, the vanity, that picture. I stepped inside, my flashlight sweeping the corners. The air felt colder, heavier, like I'd walked into a memory that wasn't mine. I checked the vanity, hoping for more clues. Under a pile of scarves, I found a letter, its envelope yellowed, addressed to my aunt. The handwriting was shaky, the words chilling. I know what you did. You can't keep me out forever. My stomach dropped. Was this from her? Before she died? Or after? A floorboard creaked behind me. I spun, flashlight shaking, but the room was empty. My heart pounded, the letter crumpled in my hand. I stuffed it back and ran, the door slamming shut as I left. I didn't look back. In the living room, I found my aunt alone, folding blankets. I couldn't hold it in. I saw her, I blurted. The woman in the seafoam gown. I know she's your mom. Why is she here? My aunt's face went white, her hands trembling. You don't know what you're talking about, she whispered, but her voice cracked. She sat down, eyes distant, and finally spoke. Mom. She loved this house. Too much. When she got sick, she wouldn't leave, even when we begged her. She said it was hers, always would be. Her voice broke. After she died, things started happening, noises, shadows. We tried to ignore it, but she trailed off, tears welling. I realized then she wasn't angry. She was scared, scared of her own mother, still clinging to this place. That night, I lay in my cousin's room, the letter's words echoing. You can't keep me out. The house was quiet, but it felt like a held breath, waiting to scream. I kept expecting her to appear, to glide past the door again, but she didn't. Maybe she'd shown me what she wanted, a glimpse of her truth, her refusal to let go. Or maybe she was waiting, watching, knowing I'd carry her with me when I left. Either way, I knew one thing. This house wasn't just a home, it was hers, and I was an intruder in her world. We left the next morning, the house fading in the rearview mirror like a bad dream. I didn't tell my aunt about the letter, didn't tell my cousin about the creak in that room. I just wanted out. The weight of her presence, those eyes, that gown, clung to me, heavy as fog. I kept expecting to see her in the car's side, mirror gliding behind us, but the road stayed empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left something behind, or brought something with me. Back home, I tried to forget. School, friends, normal life. It should have been easy. But at night, when the house was quiet, I'd lie awake picturing that hallway, her slow glide past the door. I'd check the shadows, half expecting her to be there, watching. My parents noticed I was jumpy, but I didn't tell them. How could I explain that a ghost had followed me home? That a woman I'd never met felt closer than my own shadow? Years passed, and I went back to that house for holidays, birthdays, the usual family stuff. I've been there countless times since and never saw her again. The hallway was just a hallway, the picture just a picture. But every time I walked past that spot, my skin prickled, like the air remembered her. My aunt never brought it up, and neither did I. We'd made a silent pact to let it die, to pretend she wasn't still there, somewhere, in the walls, the floorboards, the dust. One Christmas, when I was 16, I asked my cousin about it, just the two of us in his room. "You ever feel her?" I said, voice low. He looked at me, eyes older than they should have been. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Not like you saw her, but sometimes I hear stuff. A creak, a whisper. I don't look." He paused, then added, "You think she's mad we're here?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe she was, maybe she just couldn't let go. Or maybe she'd shown herself to me because I was the only one who'd listen. Now, at 29, I still think about her. She died in that living room, my cousin said, of old age. But it wasn't peaceful. She'd clung to that house with everything she had, and death hadn't changed that. I don't know if she was a ghost, a memory, or something else, but she was real, and she left a mark on me, a reminder that some things, some people don't leave no matter how much time passes. What would you do if you saw her? Would you run down that hallway, demand answers, or pretend it never happened? I chose silence, but sometimes I wonder if I should have faced her, asked what she wanted. If you're listening, check the shadows tonight. Maybe she's not in Tennessee anymore. Maybe she's closer than you think. Share your own creepy stories in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone. And if you want more tales that'll keep you up, hit that subscribe button. You won't sleep, but you won't regret it. Three weeks after moving into our new home, something whispered my name in the dead of night, right in my ear, close enough to feel its breath. My girlfriend heard it too, and our dog went berserk, barking at an empty room. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what we found when we started digging into the history of that house. We had just moved into this townhouse maybe 3 weeks ago, and what started as a fresh start turned into a nightmare we couldn't explain. Want to know what was watching us from the shadows? Stay with me. This gets chilling. It was early spring 2012, and I was 25, starting over in a small college town in Ohio with my girlfriend, Sarah, and our German Shepherd, Max. We also just moved into this townhouse maybe 3 weeks ago, a cozy place built in 1971, tucked between a row of old oaks and a quiet street. The town wasn't much, cute but rough, with a mix of students, locals, and a few too many abandoned storefronts. We'd moved from Cleveland, chasing cheaper rent and a slower pace. The house was a steal, 2 bedrooms, a creaky staircase, and a backyard Max loved. Sarah was thrilled about decorating. I was just happy to have a garage for my tools. But from day one, something felt off. The air was heavy, like the house was holding its breath. Sarah noticed it first. She'd pause in the kitchen, frowning like she heard something I didn't. Max, too. He'd stare at corners, his hackles up, growling at nothing. I brushed it off. Old houses creak, right? Maybe the neighbors were loud. But by the second week, I couldn't ignore it. At night, the silence was too thick, broken by faint taps like fingers on glass. I'd check the windows, always locked, always empty. Sarah started sleeping with the light on, saying she felt watched. I laughed it off, but I was starting to feel it too. One night we were in bed, wide awake, chatting about dumb stuff, movies, weekend plans. Max was sprawled on the floor by my side, snoring. I turned off the lamp, rolled over, and closed my eyes. Seconds later, I heard a crystal-clear whisper right in my ear. My name, spoken soft but sharp, like someone was inches from my face. My eyes snapped open. The whisper sounded female and was very fast, so I couldn't make out what it said, but it was right in my ear. Before I could move, Max spooked and started barking at full volume at something in the room, his fur bristling, teeth bared. Sarah gasped, clutching my arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. It was right in her ear too, apparently. My heart was pounding. I flipped on the light, expecting, what? A prankster? A break-in? The room was empty. Max was snarling at the corner, where nothing stood but a dresser. "Sarah, did you say something?" I asked, my voice shaky. She shook her head, pale. "No, I thought it was you." We sat there, frozen, Max's barks echoing. The whisper had been so clear, so close, like it came from inside the room. But the windows were shut, the door locked, our phones on silent. I did a sweep of the whole house afterwards, and as far as I could tell, everything was normal. "Old houses, right?" I said, trying to sound calm. Sarah wasn't buying it. "That wasn't the house, Tom. Something tells me there's something wrong with this place." We checked every room, every closet, nothing. Max finally calmed down, but he wouldn't leave my side, his ears twitching. We didn't sleep. Sarah kept saying she felt it, a presence like eyes boring into her. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt it too. The air was thick, like we weren't alone. The next day I started asking around. The neighbors were friendly but cagey. One old guy mowing his lawn gave me a weird look when I mentioned the house. "You hear anything strange?" I asked. He shrugged too quick. "Houses creak," he said, but his eyes darted away. At the local diner, I overheard whispers about our street, something about a woman who'd lived there decades ago, gone under bad circumstances. No one would say more. I tried Google, but all I found were dead-end property records. The house was built in 1971, sold a few times, no red flags. Yet the more I dug, the worse I felt. A week later, it happened again. We were in the living room watching TV, Max dozing by the couch. The power flickered, and the room went silent. Then that whisper. My name, Sarah's name, overlapping like two voices at once. Max shot up, snarling, hackles raised. This time I saw something. A shadow, quick, darting across the hallway. I grabbed a flashlight, heart racing, and checked. The house. Nothing. But the air was cold, unnaturally cold in that hallway. Sarah was shaking. "We need to leave," she said. I wanted to argue, but Max's growls said enough. We stayed at a motel that night, but I couldn't let it go. I went back alone mid-afternoon with a voice recorder, feeling like an idiot, but desperate for answers. I walked through the house asking, "Who's here? What do you want?" The recorder picked up nothing until I played. Back. Faint behind the static was a woman's voice, whispering my name over and over. My blood ran cold. I checked the house again. Still nothing. But when I stepped into the hallway, the temperature dropped, and I swear I felt a hand brush my neck. I started researching the house's history at the library. Buried in old newspapers, I found it. A story from 1973. A woman, Emily, had lived in our house. She'd vanished after a fight with her husband, presumed dead, no body found. The article hinted at foul play, but the case went cold. Locals said she'd been troubled, heard voices, acted strange. Some swore she never left, that her spirit lingered, calling out to anyone who'd listen. I didn't believe in ghosts, but the whispers, the shadow, Max's reaction, it was too much to dismiss. We moved out a month later. The landlord didn't ask questions, just refunded our deposit. The new tenants, a young couple, didn't stay long either. I heard they left after a week, spooked by noises. Sarah and I are in a new place now, no whispers, no shadows. Max is back to his old self, chasing squirrels, not ghosts. But I still have that recorder. Sometimes, late at night, I play it and there it is. Emily's voice, faint, calling my name. I don't know what she wanted or why she chose us. Maybe she's still there, waiting for someone else to hear her. Would you stay in that house or run like we did? That townhouse is still standing, rented out to new folks who probably don't know its history. I drive by sometimes and it looks normal, cute even. But I know what's inside. I've heard it, I've felt it. And once you hear that whisper, you'll never sleep the same. What would you do if it called your name? The doorbell didn't ring, but 3 children stood outside my grandmother's glass door, their heads bowed in the twilight glow of her garden. My Nana, a tough Turkish woman, opened the door, thinking they were lost. But when they spoke, asking to use her phone in low growling voices, her blood froze. This wasn't a prank. This was 2016, in a quiet Ohio suburb, and what happened next haunted her for years. Their eyes, black as midnight, no whites, locked onto hers, and then they vanished into her home. Stay with this true story. It'll make you double-check. Who's knocking at your door? It was a warm summer evening in 2016, in a quiet suburb of Dayton, Ohio, where the biggest worry was keeping the lawn trimmed. My grandmother, Aishi, lived in a cozy ranch-style house with a sprawling garden. She tended like a second child. At 70, she was a no-nonsense woman, raised in rural Turkey where superstitions were scoffed at, and strangers were met with tea, not suspicion. She'd never heard of paranormal stories, let alone things like black-eyed children. That night she was tidying the kitchen, the scent of fresh mint from her garden drifting through the open window, when she noticed 3 children standing outside the glass door leading to the living room. They were small, maybe 10 or 12, dressed in plain clothes, jeans, hoodies, unremarkable except for their stillness. Aishi approached, assuming they were neighborhood kids, maybe lost after dark. She slid the door open, her warm smile faltering when she saw their heads bowed, faces hidden in shadow. "Can I help you?" she asked, her Turkish accent thick. One child, a boy, spoke without looking up, his voice low and gravelly, like it didn't belong to a kid. "Can we use your phone to call our parents?" Aishi's stomach twisted. Something was off. The air felt heavy, the garden too silent. No crickets, no breeze. But she was raised to help, so she nodded. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. As they crossed the threshold, Aishi felt a dread so intense she nearly collapsed. Her heart raced, her hands clammy. She wanted to yell, to push them out, but her body wouldn't obey. The children moved slowly, their steps eerily synchronized, still not raising their heads. She followed them into the living room, her voice shaky. The phone's in the kitchen, but they didn't reply. They just stood there, heads down, as if waiting for something. Aishi's mind raced. Were they sick, lost, or something worse? She'd never felt fear like this, not even during her childhood in Turkey's rugged hills. Aishi stood in her living room, the children's stillness unnerving her. The silence was oppressive, like the house itself was holding its breath. She tried to speak, to ask their names, but her throat tightened. Then the boy raised his head and Aishi froze. His eyes were solid black, no whites, no pupils, just endless voids. The other two followed, their faces pale, almost waxy, with those same black eyes locking onto hers. Her fear spiked, a primal terror she couldn't explain. It wasn't just their appearance. It was the wrongness, like they weren't human at all. Her legs wobbled, but she couldn't look away. The boy spoke again, his voice a guttural rasp. "Can we come in further?" Aishi's mind screamed no, but her voice wouldn't work. The children moved past her, toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Their steps were slow, deliberate, their heads now slightly tilted, as if studying her. Aishi followed, her heart pounding, and watched them enter the hallway. Then in a blink they were gone, vanished, leaving no trace. She stumbled forward, checking the hallway, the bedrooms, the bathroom. Nothing. The house was empty, the air heavy with that same dread. She sank to the floor, gasping, her mind reeling. Had she imagined it? But the memory of those black eyes burned into her, undeniable. She called me that night, her voice trembling as she recounted the encounter. I was 22, living a few states away, and I'd never heard her sound so shaken. Aishi, who'd faced wars and hardships, was broken by these children. She described their eyes, their voices, how they disappeared. I tried to calm her, suggesting they were pranksters, but her fear was contagious. "They weren't kids," she whispered. "They wanted something from me." I stayed on the phone for hours, her words looping in my head. The next day, I drove to her house, finding her pale, eyes red from sleeplessness. She hadn't left. The living room, the glass door now locked tight. I searched the house, the garden, even asked neighbors. No one had seen 3 kids matching her description. The street was quiet, no signs of strangers. Aishi clutched a cup of tea, her hands shaking. "I let them in," she said, guilt lacing her voice. "What if they come back?" I didn't know what to say. I'd grown up hearing her dismiss ghost stories, yet here she was, unraveling. That's when I turned to the internet, typing black-eyed children into Google. What I found chilled me. Stories of kids with black eyes, demanding entry, vanishing without a trace. Every account mirrored Aishi's: fear, confusion, and a lingering sense of violation. She'd never heard of this phenomenon, making her story even more unsettling. 7. Years later, Aishi's never been the same. She moved to an apartment far from that house, but the fear lingers. She checks locks obsessively, avoids glass doors, and rarely speaks of that night. When she does, her voice drops, as if afraid they'll hear. I've watched her shrink, the vibrant woman who raised me fading into someone haunted. Those children left a mark, not just on her, but on our whole family. I still visit her, but every time I pass her old house, now empty, I feel a chill, like those eyes are watching from the garden. I've spent years piecing together what happened. The black-eyed children phenomenon isn't new. Reports date back decades, from rural Texas to urban London. Witnesses describe the same details: pale kids, black eyes, a demand to enter, and an overwhelming dread. Some call them spirits, others aliens or demons. Skeptics say it's mass hysteria, but Aishi's story doesn't fit that. She'd never heard of BEC, had no internet to stumble across it. Her fear was raw, unfiltered, and it changed her life. Joined online forums, desperate for answers. A woman in Michigan said 2 black-eyed kids knocked on her door in 2018, asking to wait inside. She refused, and they vanished. A man in Oregon claimed they appeared in his driveway, staring. Zilly ran inside. Each story ends the same, no evidence, just terror. One user theorized they're predators, not human, seeking permission to cross thresholds for reasons we don't understand. Another suggested they're tied to specific places, like Aishi's garden, a spot locals later told me felt off. Even before her encounter, what haunts me most is why they came to Aishi. Was it random? Or did her kindness, her instinct to help, make her a target? The house had no history of hauntings, but neighbors mentioned odd occurrences. Lights flickering, shadows moving in the garden. Did those children choose her? Or was it the land itself? I've thought about staking out the house, setting up cameras to catch them. But what if they see me? What if they follow me home? Aishi's story taught me something. Not every stranger is what they seem. If someone knocks at your door, especially at dusk, look closely. Check their eyes. If they're wrong, too dark, too empty, don't let them in. Trust that gut feeling, the one that screams danger. Because once you open that door, you might not close it the same way. Aishi let them in, and she's paid for it every day since. Have you or someone you know met these black-eyed children? Seen eyes that don't belong? Share your story in the comments. I'm desperate to understand what they are. And if this story shook you, subscribe for more real encounters that'll make you question the world. The next one's coming, and it's even more unsettling. You're on a crowded train heading home after a long day, just trying to blend into the hum of strangers. Then, across from you, a girl locks eyes with you. Intense, unblinking, like she's peeling back your skin. Ethan, 19, feels his stomach twist as she leans closer, her voice cutting through the clatter. Where do you live? He laughs it off, but her stare doesn't waver. When are you getting off? She presses, a smile curling that feels all wrong. The train's lights flicker, and suddenly it's just you and her in a bubble of unease. What does she want? Why does she feel so dangerous? This isn't just a weird encounter. It's a story that'll claw at your nerves and leave you questioning. Buckle up, because Ethan's ride is about to get wild. The train rattles along, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a trapped insect. Ethan slumps in his seat, phone in hand, scrolling to avoid the girl's gaze. The carriage is half full, strangers buried in their own worlds. Headphones, books, blank stares. But Lila, the girl across from him, is different. Her eyes are magnets, pulling him in despite his best efforts to ignore her. She's maybe 17, with tangled hair and a smudge of chocolate on her cheek, clutching a half-eaten candy bar like it's a lifeline. Her vibe is off, like she's performing for an audience only she can see. Ethan shifts, uneasy, his backpack wedged against his legs like a shield. Where do you live? Lila asks again, her voice sharp, cutting through the train's hum. Ethan forces a smile, muttering, nowhere special, hoping she'll drop it. She doesn't. When are you getting off? She presses, leaning forward, her breath smelling faintly of sugar and metal. Ethan's skin prickles. He's no stranger to weirdos. Growing up in a busy city, you learn to dodge them. But this feels personal, like she's already decided something about him. He glances around, hoping someone else notices, but the other passengers are oblivious, lost in their own bubbles. Lila starts humming, then giggles. Sometimes I sing. I'm just a silly girl. The words are playful, but her eyes are cold, unblinking like she's reading his thoughts. Ethan's pulse quickens. He types a nonsense text to his friend. Anything to look busy. You're pretty, she says suddenly, her voice flat like she's stating a fact. Ethan's head snaps up, confused. What? He stammers. She tilts her head, smirking. Do I have chocolate on my face? He nods, pointing to her cheek, and she wipes it slowly, deliberately, never breaking eye contact. The train lurches and Ethan's stomach twists. He's trapped in this 4-seat cluster, her knees inches from his. She holds out the chocolate bar. Want some? Ethan shakes his head, his throat dry. No thanks. Her smile widens, but it's not friendly. It's like a predator baring teeth. The air feels thicker now, the train's rhythm syncing with his heartbeat. He notices her hands, nails bitten raw, a silver ring glinting on her thumb. She twirls, it humming again, the tune jagged and off-key. Ethan's mind races for an exit strategy. Should he move seats? Call someone? But the next stop is 10 minutes away, and something tells him not to provoke her. She's not just odd, she's wrong. Like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. He glances at her bag, half open on the seat, and sees something glint inside. A metal tool, maybe a knife. His breath catches. Is he overreacting, or is this about to get dangerous? The train's hum is a distant drone now, drowned out by Ethan's pounding heart. Lila's presence fills the space, her every move a threat. He keeps his eyes on his phone, but it's useless. Her gaze burns into him, relentless. The other passengers might as well be ghosts. No one's noticing the tension. Crackling between them, Lila starts humming again, then stops abruptly. I'm just a silly girl, she says. Her voice sing-song, but edged with something darker. Ethan forces a nod, his jaw tight. He's counting the minutes to his stop, praying she gets off first. But then she leans closer, her breath hot against his ear. I love you, she whispers, the words dripping like poison. Ethan freezes, his phone slipping in his sweaty palm. What? He chokes out, hoping he misheard. She grins, eyes wild. I'm going to kidnap you, strip you for me. The words hit like a freight train. Ethan's mind blanks, panic surging through his veins. He glances at her bag again, the glint of metal now a screaming warning. Is she serious? Joking? Her face says neither. It's a mask of calm, like she's discussing the weather. He scans the carriage, desperate for an ally, but the nearest guy's asleep, headphones blaring. Ethan's trapped, his back pressed against the window, the cold glass grounding him. I have a girlfriend, he lies, voice cracking. Lila laughs, sharp and cruel. I'll beat her. The threat lands heavy, her eyes glinting with something unhinged. Ethan's stomach churns. He's not just uncomfortable now, he's scared. The train slows, approaching. His stop. Ethan's legs twitch, ready to bolt, but Lila's still talking, her voice a relentless stream. Will you go with me? Can I come home with you? She asks, her tone almost pleading, but her smile says she's in control. Ethan shakes, his head mumbling, No, I gotta go. The train jerks to a stop, doors hissing open. He grabs his backpack, heart hammering, and stands, keeping her in his peripheral vision. Are you going now, love? She calls, her voice soft but piercing. When are we going to meet again? Ethan doesn't answer, pushing through the crowd, his pulse roaring in his ears. He steps onto the platform, the cool air hitting his face like a lifeline. He doesn't look back, but he feels her eyes on him, boring through the train's windows as it pulls away. On the platform, Ethan's legs shake, his breath ragged. He checks his surroundings, half expecting her to appear. The station's busy, but he feels alone, exposed. Did anyone else see her? Hear her? He replays her words: kidnap, strip, love, and shudders. Was she unhinged, or was there something calculated in her chaos? He pulls out his phone, hands trembling, and texts his friend, "Just had the creepiest train ride. Tell you later." But as he walks home, the weight of her stare lingers, like a shadow he can't shake. Ethan's walk home feels like a marathon, every shadow a threat, every stranger's glance a potential Lila. His apartment, usually a cramped but safe haven, feels too small tonight. He locks the door, checks it twice, and sinks onto the couch, replaying the train ride. Her voice, "I love you, I'll kidnap you," loops in his head, each word a needle. He texts his friend again, spilling the details, but typing it out doesn't help. It makes it real. He's confused, shaken, but grateful she didn't follow him home. Sleep doesn't come easy. Every creak of the building sounds like her humming, her footsteps. He keeps his phone close, ready to call for help. But the night passes quietly. Too quietly. The next day, Ethan's back at university, but he's not himself. He scans crowds, half expecting Lila's face. His friends notice, pressing him for details. When he tells them, they laugh it off. Just a crazy chick, man. But Ethan's not convinced. There was something in her eyes, a hunger that wasn't random. He starts avoiding the train, taking buses instead. But the extra hour each way cuts into his study time. His grades slip, his focus fractured. One night, he's at a campus coffee shop scrolling through local news when a headline catches his eye. String of disturbing encounters reported on city trains. His heart skips. The article describes a young woman, early 20s, approaching strangers with personal questions, erratic behavior, and threats. No name, no photo, but the description, tangled hair, intense stare, fits Lila like a glove. Ethan digs deeper, finding forum posts from other commuters. One guy writes about a girl who sang to him, asked to go home with him, then vanished when he called security. Another mentions a woman who offered candy, then threatened to take him somewhere special. The stories span months, all on the same train line. Ethan's stomach churns. Was Lila a serial harasser, preying on lone passengers? Or was she just unstable, latching onto anyone who met her gaze? He reports it to campus security, but they're dismissive. Too vague, no evidence. "If she shows up again, call us," they say. Ethan wants to scream. If she shows up again, I'm not sticking around. Weeks pass, and Ethan's life settles. But the fear lingers. He's hypervigilant, always checking his surroundings, avoiding eye contact with strangers. One evening, he's at the bus stop when his phone buzzes, a message from an unknown number. "Missed you on the train, pretty. When are we meeting?" His blood runs cold. He blocks the number, but the message burns into his mind. Was it her? How did she get his number? He never gave it, never shared anything personal. He tells his parents, who urge him to stay with them for a while. Ethan agrees, packing a bag, but the move feels like running, not safety. Months later, Ethan's back on the train, unavoidable for a job interview. He's tense, scanning every face. At a quiet stop, a woman boards, her hood up, face shadowed. She sits across from him, and Ethan's heart races. Is it Lila? She doesn't look up, but her hands, bitten nails, silver ring, make his skin crawl. He grips his bag, ready to bolt, but she gets off at the next stop, never meeting his eyes. Ethan exhales, shaky, but the relief is fleeting. Was it her, or is he seeing ghosts? The train pulls away, and he's left with a gnawing truth. He'll never know if Lila is still out there, watching, waiting for another chance. In a world of fleeting encounters, some strangers leave scars that don't fade. Always stay sharp, because you never know who's sitting across from you. Have you ever walked into a room and known, deep in your bones, that something was watching you? Not with eyes, but with a presence that crawls under your skin and whispers, "You shouldn't be here." That's what I felt every single night. Working the graveyard shift at the Willow Creek Inn, a crumbling hotel in a nowhere town in Ohio. My name's Clara, and what I saw in that place changed me forever. This isn't just a ghost story, it's a warning. The Willow Creek Inn wasn't much to look at. Faded wallpaper, creaky floors, and a neon sign that flickered like it was begging to die. But beneath its tired exterior, it held secrets. I had 2 people overdose in a room I was scheduled to clean that day, and that was just the start. Over the years, the hotel had seen more deaths than anyone cared to count. Suicides, overdoses, even a guest who fell down the stairs and never got up. The staff whispered about it, half joking, half terrified, calling it the haunted hotel. I didn't believe in ghosts, not at first, but the stories piled up. Guests waking to footsteps in empty rooms, mirrors reflecting faces that weren't there, and a cold spot in the lobby that never warmed, no matter how high you cranked the heat. The hotel sat across from a small college, and every year they held events in our banquet hall. That's when things got weird. At almost every event, one of the college freshman kids go missing, vanishing without a trace. No one talked about it openly, but we all knew. The town pretended it was normal, runaways, they said. But I saw the police reports, the abandoned backpacks, the phones left charging on nightstands. Something was wrong with this place, and it wasn't just bad luck. My coworkers laughed it off, blaming the old building's quirks. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the Willow Creek wasn't just a hotel. It was a predator, waiting for its next guest to wander too close. The air was always heavy, like the walls were holding their breath, and every shadow seemed to move just out of sight. I started noticing small things. Doors left ajar when I knew I'd locked them, lights flickering in patterns that felt deliberate. The hotel was alive, and it was watching me. I wasn't sure what it wanted, but I knew one thing: it wasn't going to let me leave without a fight. The first sign that the Willow Creek wasn't just old but wrong came from the elevator. It was an ancient thing, all rusted gears and flickering lights, used mostly by the housekeeping staff. Most housekeepers use opens and closes slowly on its own at random times when nobody is on it. I'd seen it happen, doors sliding open with a groan, revealing nothing but an empty shaft, then closing like they'd changed their mind. At first I thought it was just faulty wiring, but then I heard the whispers. It was my second week on the job, pushing a cleaning cart down the 3rd floor hallway at 2 a.m. The hotel was silent, the guests asleep. When I heard it, a low murmur, like a conversation just out of reach coming from the elevator. I froze, my hands tightening on the cart. The doors were closed, but the sound grew louder. Distinct voices now, arguing in a language I couldn't place. I checked the panel. No one had called the elevator. Yet the numbers lit up, counting down. 3, 2, 1. The doors opened, and the whispers stopped. The car was empty, but the air inside felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. I didn't step inside. Something told me not to. Instead, I watched as the doors closed, and the elevator descended to the basement. Minutes later, it returned. Doors opening again, and this time I swear I saw something. A shadow, tall and formless, flickering in the corner. It didn't move, but I felt its gaze, cold and unyielding. I backed away, heart pounding, and took the stairs for the rest of my shift. After that, I avoided the elevator whenever I could, but it didn't matter. It knew I was there. Sometimes, I'd hear it open behind me, even when I was floors away, like it was calling me back. The other housekeepers had stories too. Maria, who'd worked there for a decade, said she once found handprints on the elevator's mirror. Small, like a child's, but smudged with something black and oily. She cleaned them off, but they reappeared the next night. Another co-worker, Jake, swore he'd been trapped inside for 10 minutes, the buttons dead, while something scratched at the walls. We laughed it off in the break room, but our eyes told the truth. We were scared. The elevator wasn't just broken, it was a doorway and something was trying to come through. I started to wonder if it was connected to the disappearances, if whatever lived in the elevator was hunting us, waiting for the right moment to strike. Room 217 was where it all came undone. I'd heard the rumors. Guests refusing to stay there. Housekeepers quitting after a single shift. But I didn't believe them. Not until I stepped inside. It was a Tuesday, mid-afternoon. The hotel quiet as a tomb. I was assigned to clean 217 while the guest was out. The moment I crossed the threshold, I just instantly knew that something was off. The air was thick, like walking through fog, and the room felt wrong, like it was watching me. I checked the corners, the closet, even under the bed, nothing. Just a standard room with a lumpy mattress and a muted TV. But my skin prickled, and my breath came in shallow bursts. I started making the bed, trying to shake the feeling when I heard it. An old lady said, "Thank you," clear as day, right beside me. Her voice soft but sharp, like she was standing over my shoulder. I froze, my hands clutching the sheets. I didn't turn around, I couldn't. My mind raced. The TV was muted, the guest was gone, and the hallway was empty. There was no one here, but I felt her presence pressing against me, cold and heavy. Forced myself to move, walking to the bathroom to grab the used washcloths. As I bent over the tub, the mirror above the sink flickered. Not the light, but the reflection. For a split second, I saw her, an old woman, her face pale and sunken, her eyes black pits. She was right behind me, her lips curled in a smile that wasn't kind. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and ran for the door. The room seemed to stretch, the walls bending inward, the air growing colder with every step. When I reached the hallway, I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't. But later, I found something in my cart. A single white glove embroidered with the initials EM. It wasn't there before, and no guest had reported it missing. I threw it in the trash, but the next day, it was back in my cart, pristine, like it had never been touched. Room 217 wasn't just haunted. It was alive, and it wanted me to know it wasn't done with me. I started to see her in other places. Her reflection in a window, her shadow in the stairwell. Each time she was closer, her voice clearer. "You belong here, Clara." I was losing my grip, and the hotel knew it. The disappearances were what pushed me over the edge. This latest one was last seen exiting the building through the main lobby, with nothing with him, and getting into a car. And he still to this day hasn't been found. His name was Ryan, a freshman at the college across the street. He'd been at one of our events, a loud, drunken party in the banquet hall. I saw him that night, laughing with his friends, oblivious to the hotel's hunger. By morning, he was gone. His room was untouched. Phone on the charger, wallet on the dresser, shoes by the door. The police called it a runaway case, but I knew better. Ryan didn't leave. He was taken. It wasn't the first time. Every year during the college's events, someone vanished. A girl named Sarah in 2019, last seen walking toward the elevator. A boy named Tyler in 2021, his backpack found in the basement, covered in that same black, oily substance Maria saw in the elevator. The pattern was undeniable. but no one wanted to see it. The hotel was a trap, and the students were its prey. I started digging, reading old guest logs, newspaper clippings, anything I could find. What I found chilled me. The disappearances went back decades, long before the overdoses, long before the hotel even had a name. I began to notice things I'd missed before. Footprints in the dust of unused rooms, always leading to room 217. A guest book from the 1970s with an entry signed EM. The same initials on the glove. And late at night, when the hotel was quiet, I'd hear footsteps above me, pacing in 217, even when the room was empty. Whatever was in that room was connected to the vanishings. It wasn't just a ghost. It was something older, something that fed on the living, and it was growing stronger. I started to wonder if the elevator was its way in, a bridge between our world and whatever hell it came from. And if it was, what did it want with me? I couldn't stay silent anymore. I told my manager about room 217, the elevator, the disappearances. He laughed, said I'd been working too many night shifts, but I saw the fear in his eyes. He knew something, even if he wouldn't admit it. I started carrying a flashlight and a pocket knife, checking every shadow, every corner. The hotel didn't like that. One night, as I passed 217, the door creaked open on its own, just an inch, revealing darkness so thick it seemed to pulse. I slammed it shut, my heart in my throat, but I heard her again, the old lady's voice whispering, "Stay with me, Clara." I quit the next day. I couldn't take it. The weight of the hotel, the eyes I felt on me, the footsteps that followed. Home. But leaving didn't free me. I still dream of room 217, of the old woman's face in the mirror, her black eyes pulling me in. I see Ryan, Sarah, Tyler, standing in the elevator, their faces blank, their voices calling my name. They sob. Willow Creek Inn isn't just a place. It's a hunter, and it doesn't let go. I've moved across the state, but I still check my locks every night, still jump at creaks in the dark, because I know it's still out there waiting. What's in room 217? Is it the old woman, EM, or something older? Something that's been there since the hotel was built? And what does it want with the students, with me? I don't have answers, but I have a warning. If you ever stay at the Willow Creek Inn, don't take the elevator. Don't open the door to 217. And if you hear a voice thanking you in the dark, run. Because whatever's in that hotel, it's hungry. And it's already chosen its next guest. The clock struck midnight and I was wide awake, staring into the dark of my apartment. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from a strange certainty. Something was in the room with me. I'd spent my whole life shrugging off ghost stories, laughing at the idea of an afterlife. But at 30, everything changed. A shadow moved in my kitchen, not a flicker of light, but a person, made of darkness, watching me. I'm not crazy. I'm not imagining it. What I saw that night wasn't just a ghost. It was proof that the things I'd buried as a kid were real, and they'd come back to find me. This happened last year, in a cramped one-bedroom in Portland, Oregon. I'd lived there for years, a skeptic through and through. I'd never really been sure in the afterlife, one of those, I have to see it to believe it kind of people. But my parents always said I was different as a kid. They told me that when I was really young, I apparently used to see ghosts. They'd find me talking to empty corners, describing people they couldn't see. It freaked them out, but I don't remember much. Just vague flashes of faces in the dark, whispers I couldn't place. At one point, I got so scared that I asked all the ghosts to go away until I was 30. My parents swore it worked. They stopped showing up immediately, according to them. I laughed it off as an adult, chalking it up to a kid's wild imagination. Until last summer, I'd turned 36 months earlier and life was normal. Work, friends, the usual grind. But that night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was quiet, the city hum outside my window, a familiar drone. I got up, restless, pacing in the dark. That's when I felt it, a prickle on my neck like someone was standing right behind me. I had that feeling so strongly, assuming it must be my roommate, thinking I felt the floorboards move a little. I turned, expecting to see Jake, my roommate, grabbing a late-night snack. But the kitchen was empty. Or so I thought. Then I saw it. A shadow in the shape of a person, made of darkness, about a foot shorter than me, large in weight. It stood by the stove, solid but not solid, like a hole cut from the world. My breath caught. I stood there looking at them, kind of dumbfounded, saying, "Oh my God." It didn't move at first, just watched. I blinked, heart racing, and it paused for a moment, then walked around me, heading toward the stove, vanishing into thin air. I stumbled back, my mind screaming for an explanation. No drugs, no drinks, no sleep deprivation, just me awake and that thing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, lights on, replaying it. Was it a trick of the light? A hallucination? But I'd felt it, that presence, heavy and real. I thought about my parents' stories, my childhood gift. Had I really banished something all those years ago? And now, at 30, was it back? I wasn't scared, not exactly. I was curious, electrified, like I'd stumbled onto a secret I was meant to uncover. But one question burned. What did it want? And why me? The next day, I was a mess. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, but my mind was buzzing. That shadow person, it wasn't just a one-off. I felt it like a weight in the air, lingering in the apartment. I kept checking the kitchen, half expecting to see it again, standing by the stove, watching. Jake noticed I was off, asking if I was okay. I shrugged it off, not ready to spill. How do you tell your roommate you saw a ghost? But I couldn't let it go. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I started digging into my past. I called my mom, heart pounding, and asked about those childhood stories. "You were always different," she said, voice soft. "You'd point at empty rooms, say you saw friends. We thought it was cute until you started crying, saying they wouldn't leave you alone. My parents told me that when I was really young, I apparently used to see ghosts." She confirmed the story I'd half forgotten. At one point, I got so scared that I asked all the ghosts to go away until I was 30. "And they did," she said. "You never talked about them again." I sat there, phone in hand, chills running down my spine. Had I really done that? And if so, why was it back now? I scoured the internet, looking for anything that matched what I'd seen. Shadow people, apparitions, psychic sensitivity. It was overwhelming. Most of it sounded like nonsense, but some stories hit too close to home. Dark figures, silent watchers, showing up when you least expect. I found forums where people claimed they could sense spirits like a sixth sense. I'd never been sure in the afterlife, but now I was questioning everything. Was I one of those people? Had I always been? That night I sat in the kitchen, lights dim, testing the air. I know it sounds crazy, but I wanted to see it again, to prove I wasn't losing it. The apartment was still, the clock ticking too loud. I stared at the stove where it had vanished and whispered, "If you're here, show yourself." Nothing, just silence. But the prickle on my neck was back, stronger, like eyes boring into me from the dark. I turned, scanning the room, but it was empty. Or was it? The air felt charged, like a storm about to break. I started noticing things. A cup left on the counter. When I swore I'd put it away. A door creaking open just an inch. Jake blamed the building's quirks, but I wasn't so sure. I kept a journal, noting every oddity, every time I felt that presence. It wasn't just the kitchen anymore. It was the hallway, the bathroom, the corner by my bed. I wasn't scared, not exactly. I was hooked like a detective chasing a lead. But deep down I wondered, was I inviting it closer? And if I was, what would happen when it answered? By the end of the week, I was sure of one thing. This wasn't random. The shadow person wasn't just passing through. It was here for me. And the more I thought about my childhood, the more I realized I'd never been normal. I just buried it, told it to go away. But now, at 30, my past was catching up, and it had a message I couldn't ignore. I was in too deep. Every night I'd sit in the dark, waiting for that shadow to show up, my journal filling with notes. Cup moved again. Door ajar at 2 a.m., felt it watching from the hallway. Jake started giving me weird looks, asking why I was so jumpy. I didn't tell him. I couldn't. This was mine to figure out, a puzzle tied to my past, to that kid who'd seen things no one else could. But the more I chased it, the heavier the air in the apartment felt, like I was stirring something I shouldn't. I called my dad, hoping for more pieces of the puzzle. "You were always sensitive," he said, voice gruff. "Your mom and I didn't know what to do. You'd wake up screaming, saying they were in your room. They said that at one point I got so scared that I asked all the ghosts to go away until I was 30. He chuckled, but it was forced. "We thought you grew out of it. Guess we were wrong." I hung up, my stomach twisting. Wrong about what? That I'd stopped seeing them, or that they'd stopped coming? I started experimenting. I'd sit in different rooms, lights off, whispering questions. Who are you? Why now? Most nights nothing happened. But sometimes I'd feel it. That prickle, that weight. One night I was in the bathroom staring at the mirror when the air shifted. The reflection dimmed like a cloud passed over the moon. I froze, my breath fogging the glass. Behind me in the mirror I saw it. Not clear, but there. A shadow in the shape of a person made of darkness. It didn't move, just stood. Its presence heavy, like it was sizing me up. I turned, heart pounding, but the room was empty. The mirror was clear again, but my hands were shaking. I wrote it down, every detail, but it wasn't enough. I needed to know what it wanted. I started talking to it, not just whispering, but speaking aloud, like it was a person. "If you've got something to say, say it," I'd challenge, pacing the apartment. Jake caught me once, raising an eyebrow. "You good, man?" I mumbled something about stress, but he didn't buy it. I didn't care. This wasn't about him. It was about me, my past, and whatever I'd unleashed by turning 30. The turning point came a week later. I was in bed, half asleep, when I felt it again. Eyes on me, close, too close. I sat up, scanning the dark. There it was, by the stove, vanishing into thin air as my eyes adjusted. But this time I heard something. A low hum, not words, but a sound that vibrated in my chest. It wasn't threatening, but it wasn't friendly either. It was expectant, like it was waiting for me to do something. I didn't sleep that night, my mind racing. Was this my gift waking up, or was I opening a door I couldn't close? I wasn't scared anymore, not really. I was obsessed. I wondered if I was supposed to be a medium or something. But obsession has a price, and I was starting to feel it. The apartment wasn't mine anymore. It was ours, mine, and the shadows. And I had no idea what it would do next. I couldn't stop. The shadow person was part of my life now, a silent roommate I couldn't ignore. Every night I'd wait for it, journal in hand, tracking its movements. Kitchen, 1:03 a.m., hallway, 2:47 a.m. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a presence, a weight that followed me from room to room. Jake started staying out late, probably weirded out by my late-night pacing. I didn't blame him. The apartment felt different, like it belonged to someone, something else. I dove deeper into research, reading about psychic abilities, shadow people, and spiritual sensitivity. Some said these figures were ghosts. Others said they were something older, not human. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew what I'd seen. I'd never been sure in the afterlife, but now I was questioning everything. I found a local group online, people who claimed to sense things. I met Sarah, a woman in her 40s who called herself a medium. Over coffee, I told her everything. The childhood visions, the shadow, the hum. She listened, eyes sharp. "You've got a gift," she said, "but gifts come with risks. You're calling it to you." Her words stuck with me. Was I calling it? I'd been challenging it, talking to it, practically inviting it in. That night, I tried something new. I sat in the living room, lights off, and spoke softly. "I'm not afraid. Tell me what you want." The air grew heavy, the prickle on my neck sharper. I waited, heart pounding. And then I felt it. A shift, like the room tilted. A shadow in the shape of a person made of darkness stood by the stove. It didn't move, but its presence was louder, more intense, like it was trying to speak without words. I held my breath, waiting, but it vanished into thin air, leaving only silence. I wrote it down, my hands shaking. Sarah's warning echoed. Gifts come with risks. I started noticing changes. My dreams were vivid, filled with faces I didn't recognize, voices I couldn't place. I'd wake up exhausted, like I'd been somewhere else. The apartment grew colder even in summer, and Jake complained about weird vibes. I didn't tell him about the shadow, but I wondered if he felt it too. I kept talking to it, asking questions, but the answers were always the same. That hum, that weight, that sense of being watched. One night I pushed too far. I stood in the kitchen, voice firm. "Show me who you are, now." The air snapped like static before a storm. The lights flickered, and there it was by the stove, larger, darker, its edges sharper. The hum was louder, almost a growl, vibrating. In my bones, I froze, my bravado gone. It didn't move, but I felt it. Anger, or maybe warning. I stumbled back, heart racing, and it was gone. I didn't sleep that night. My journal opened to a single line. I think I made it mad. I was at a crossroads. I wondered if I was supposed to be a medium or something. But this wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was a connection, one I wasn't sure I could control. The shadow wasn't just visiting. It was settling in, and I had to decide. Keep chasing it, or shut it out before it took over. I had to make a choice. The shadow person wasn't just a visitor. It was part of my world. Now a constant hum in the back of my mind. I couldn't keep chasing it. Not after that night in the kitchen when its anger, or whatever it was, shook me to my core. But shutting it out meant turning my back on a part of myself. The kid who'd seen things no one else could. I wasn't sure I was ready for that either. I met Sarah again, desperate for advice. "You've opened a door," she said, voice low. "You can close it, but it takes work, and you might lose something." I didn't know what she meant, but I knew I couldn't live like this. Jumpy, sleepless, feeling it in every corner of my apartment. I stopped talking to it, stopped sitting in the dark, stopped asking questions. I filled my nights with noise, music, TV, anything to drown out the silence where it thrived. It worked mostly. The prickle on my neck faded. The air lightened. Jake stopped giving me weird looks, and the apartment felt like mine again. But I'd still catch things. A shadow in the corner of my eye, a cup out of place, a faint hum when I was alone. I've never seen one since that night, but sometimes I feel it, lurking just out of sight. I don't write it down anymore. I don't talk about it. I've tried to go back to being the skeptic I was, the guy who needed proof to believe. But I can't unsee it. I still think about that night, wondering if I'm supposed to be a medium or something. I've read more, talked to others like Sarah, people who say sensitivity like mine doesn't just go away. It's in me, buried but alive, waiting for the right moment to wake up. I don't know if I want it to. Part of me misses the thrill, the connection to something bigger. But another part, the part that felt its anger, knows I dodged something I wasn't ready for. Now at 31, I live in a new place, a fresh start. The shadow hasn't followed me, at least not that I can tell. But I check the corners, the mirrors, the dark spots where light doesn't reach. I wonder if it's still out there waiting for me to call it back. Or maybe it never left, just went quiet, like it did when I was a kid. I chose silence, but I'm not sure it's over. And that's the scariest part. Knowing it's in me, always will be, whether I want it or not. What would you do if you saw it? Would you chase it like I did? Or shut it out before it got too close? I'm still figuring it out. If you've ever felt something watching you, something you can't explain, drop it in the comments. I need to know I'm not the only one. And if you want more stories that'll make you question the dark, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to keep the lights on. You've just heard 10 of the darkest, most disturbing stories ever told across America. But here's the thing. These weren't just stories from the past. They're still echoing. That strange house on a quiet street. That abandoned highway. Exit no one uses anymore? That small town where everyone avoids one particular block after sunset? They're still there. And people still whisper. Some still vanish. Maybe tonight you'll sleep soundly. Or maybe something in one of these stories felt too familiar. A detail, a place, a name, that's how it starts. And once it does, the line between listener and participant disappears. But this was just Volume 1. There are dozens more like these. Stories buried in dusty case files, unmarked graves, and shaky videotapes no one dared release. So if you want to know more, subscribe, return, and be ready. Because next time we won't just visit haunted places, we'll walk right into them.